Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the best damn Panthers podcast in the whole United States, in the whole country, the whole universe. Primetime Carolina. I'm with my co-host Dave LaFave. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? It's a beautiful victory Saturday morning. I've got my Panthers mug at hand, a nice cup of coffee. Feeling good.
Very nice. Very nice, very nice. Big victory Saturday for us here. Last preseason game of the season for the Panthers and pretty much for the whole NFL. Panthers played the Steelers last night at home. Won the game pretty convincingly, 34-9. If this was a regular season game, I'd be bouncing off the walls right now. So we've got a lot to get into. We've got Sam Darnold, really his first reps that we've seen live in a game. We've got Shai Smith going down with an injury. We've got some guys, a kicker competition. We've got some guys that are on the fringe. If they're going to make the roster, we're going to talk about that. And then talk a little bit about Steve Smith, his commentary, what people thought about him so far, and then kind of look forward to the to week one against the Jets. So I'll let you go ahead and start things off. Your thoughts on the game yesterday, and most importantly, Sam Darnold, how he played.
All right. Well, before I go into it, I just want to say I hope you're feeling well because I know you had surgery recently.
Thank you.
Secondly, I think last night was exactly what Panthers fans needed because I think after the first two preseason games, not really getting to see a lot of the starters, especially Sam Darnold, I think there were a lot of people already panicking. So I think for the starters to get some reps last night, play a solid half, show that they're a competent football team was something a lot of people needed to see. Specifically talking about Sam Darnold, I thought when he first came out, I think he was a little jittery. I think he had a little bit of happy feet going on. I think he was a little nervous, which is understandable. A young guy in a new city, you don't know how many chances you're going to get in the NFL, and this is, he's already on his second chance. So, but I think once he settled in, I thought he was playing very well. I was a little concerned. It seemed like he does eye down receivers a little bit. But I think, again, that just kind of has to do with some of those nerves. I think once he got settled in, he looked nice. I thought more than anything, the thing that jumped out to me was just his arm strength compared to what we were used to watching last year with Teddy Bridgewater. That ball just jumps right off his hand, it felt like, after watching some of those quacking ducks that Teddy was throwing last year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I might be in the minority here, just based on what maybe you said and then what I've seen online, people's reactions. Despite the pretty terrible offensive line play last night from the Panthers, when Sam Darnold had opportunities to sit in the pocket and throw the ball, to me, he looked damn good. Now, he did, in the beginning, he's a little bit of happy feet. I know they touched on that in the commentary, and then you could see it live on the screen. But, it's really the first time he's really played. Last game he played like one series, I think. So this is the first time he's actually played in his new stadium on his new team at home with the starters. He was a little nervous. I think anybody would be. And I think he was really excited because, he missed a couple of throws here and there, but that's okay. But for the chances he got, when he was getting blown up, he did make a couple plays, sidestep some people. He's got a little bit of mobility. He was extremely accurate with most of his throws. He missed a couple. I like the fact that him and DJ Moore seem to be building a good chemistry. Last year, that was completely missing in our offense. Teddy Bridgewater was completely locked in on Robbie Anderson, which is fine, but, DJ Moore is also a good player. We see Terrace Marshall. The guy's going to be a stud. He gets a touchdown yesterday. He looked great. Robbie Anderson had a touchdown. They've got that chemistry, nice little back shoulder throw in the end zone. I love that. This is all going to come down to how well the offensive line can protect Sam Darnold, because you could see, there were some times yesterday when he got rushed and he got, he kind of felt that panic a little bit, which, anyone would, being in the situation that he was in. But when he had time and, he had some options open, he connected and he looked really well. I saw a guy that's got all the tools. We need to work on this offensive line to give this guy the best chance possible.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the offensive line because for me that was easily the biggest red flag yesterday. Easily. I think if they can play, well enough, it's really going to determine how successful this team is. Because I think everywhere else, we are one solid team. It's just going to, depend what the offensive line can do. I think some of those younger guys who weren't getting as many starter reps deserve the opportunity to go in there and get a chance. So hopefully we'll see that moving forward. Hopefully the coaching staff will get to a point where they're comfortable with those guys, feel like they can put them in and get some quality reps. But, for some of these free agents that we brought in, I'm just not really seeing it. And I think if anything, it's a sidestep to put in these younger guys, and they could use the experience. Speaking of, Deontay Brown and Brady Christensen, mostly.
I think if we're talking a couple years ago when Ron Rivera was in charge, there's no doubt in my mind we'd be playing the veterans over the rookies, no matter how much better they are. I think it's pretty clear as day that the people that we brought in free agency for the offensive line, Pat Elefine, however you say his name, and Cam Irving, those guys we can keep them as backups. That's fine for depth. But these guys are not starters. They were available for a reason. And we just need to cut the crap and just go ahead and put the best offensive line we have possible. I don't care if they're rookies. Put them in the best positions to succeed, and let's just roll with it, because we already know what we have with the guys that are starting as far as Elefine and Cam Irving.
Yep.
We've got Moten. We've got John Miller. Matt Paredes is I don't know what to say about him. Sometimes he's pretty solid. Sometimes he looks terrible. But at the same time, we got to come with the best guys possible, because we've only got one chance of making this Sam Darnold thing work. People were talking, next year we can fix the draft. We can fix the line of the draft. I'm like, no, we're not waiting until next year. We've got guys. Put them in now, and let's roll and see how it works.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way, they could be much worse. And Paredes, he had a rough game last night, and his time overall in Carolina has been nothing short of a disappointment, I would say. When they brought him in, he was considered, a Pro Bowl center, and he has not played up to that caliber since he's been here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I didn't know much about him when we signed him, but the consensus was that he was a pretty solid player, so I was all down for it. And, last year he was okay, but this, it's been a lot more bad than good. So in my opinion, I thought they were going to put Moten at left tackle. I guess they're not going to do that. So for me, I would put, if it was up to my opinion, I would put Christensen at left tackle. I know people will say he's more of a right tackle. Let's just see how it works. Put him at left tackle. Put Deontay Brown at guard, Paredes at center, John Miller at guard, and then Moten at right tackle. Maybe you fit Dennis Daly in there in the mix somewhere. And that, I think that's as good as it's going to get. And then just maybe some guys get cut here or there. You could pick a guy up or two, but, you got to make it work as best as possible for Darnold to succeed, because when he was getting pressured, you could see the deer in the headlights, the oh shit moment, and you want to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you just laid out for me is probably the ideal offensive line for the Panthers as well. But I think Moten is their best left tackle. I don't know why they don't just put him over there. It really doesn't make much sense to me. If you have, you spend all this money on this guy, yes, he's better as a right tackle, but he's the best left tackle option you have. Why wouldn't you just put him over there? And, Brady Christensen, he's shown in the preseason he can do okay at that right tackle spot. Has he been perfect? No, he's had some ugly reps, absolutely. But at the same time, he's shown he can do it. He's had a solid preseason over there in the opportunities that he's had. So, I don't know what they're going to do, but, for the most part, I agree with what you're saying. I would probably do it about the same as you just laid it out. But for Elefine and Irving, it's just, they don't look like they're it. And like you said, Sam Darnold, he's been in this situation before where if that offensive line is crumbling in front of him, he's not going to be confident back there. He's going to make silly decisions. And we saw that a little bit last night, actually, when he got some pressure in the interior line. I think it was 3rd and long. Maybe it was 2nd and long. I can't remember. The line let some people get through right up the middle. And as he was taking a sack, he tried to get rid of the ball, and it was nearly a fumble. It was nearly a turnover. So, but if he's protected, he can play. He can throw. I mean, that arm talent is undeniable, and it's far better than anything we've seen since healthy Cam Newton was back there.
No, I agree 100%. I agree with your take on the Moton move. I don't know why they haven't put him at left tackle. Maybe they see something that we don't. I think it would be smart to put him over there and let him. I think they should have been doing that all preseason, and he would already be a lot more comfortable because you see what's going on with I don't know if you've been keeping up with Panay Sewell over there in Detroit. He's been getting roasted a lot.
Yeah, that's all I've seen. I haven't seen anything positive from him,
and it's tough because the guy was looked at as a superstar left tackle, and he didn't play last year because of COVID. And then he comes in the league, the highest level of football you can go, and then he's playing a different position, and people are already, crapping all over the guy. I hate it for him, but I guess maybe they're a little bit afraid of that possibly, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe that'll be something they'll make a change on sooner rather than later, or maybe, they feel confident maybe putting Christensen over there, but they got to do something. They can't go in with that because we just played the secondary. Could you imagine, or the second stringers for Pittsburgh? Right. Could you imagine if TJ Watt was on that line? He would have blew it up.
Yeah, it would have been a real problem. And that's what I was thinking when I was watching it. I was like, man, this ain't cutting it, because Sam Darnold, he's going to be in trouble if that offensive line doesn't step up. Because like you said, last night they were playing against backups, and they still look bad.
Yeah.
So, at one point I was like, yeah, this guy's going to die. This guy's in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And, that can make any quarterback make rash decisions and to do, not smart things in the pocket. And that's exactly because he's just trying to make something out of nothing. Sometimes it's better to just take the sack, but at the same time, you're just trying to do something and you just keep getting pummeled. And we've been saying this forever. I think in hindsight, a lot of people say, oh, well, we should have drafted a tackle in the first round. I think in hindsight, that's easy to say. Obviously I would have liked a Rashawn Slater, but as a left tackle or whatever they wanted to do, maybe somebody else. But I like the J.C. Horn pick. He looked good yesterday. I think that's a great pick. And then obviously we'll go to Terrace Marshall now. He was our second round pick. Guy was awesome. He looks like a total baller. He's definitely the number 3 position. And I'm so happy that we extended Robbie Anderson because I think a lot of people were saying, hey, well, we'll just let him develop and then we'll let him walk and then we'll let Terrace Marshall take his role. No, I want as many good receivers as possible on this team.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 3 than 2. So I love it.
Yeah, especially for, having a young quarterback back there. We need all the weapons we can get. And, whether Sam Darnold works out or not, the next guy, you're going to want him to have weapons so he can be successful. You know what I mean? And I think we saw last night, these weapons are talented enough that if Sam Darnold can just be pretty good, this team can win and score a lot of points.
Yes.
So, that was my takeaway. And, that's exactly what we expected, coming into it. So, we'll see. I lost my train of thought, man. I had something about what you were just talking about. I can't remember what it was, but that's all right. We can just move on, I guess.
But yeah, I think the more weapons, the merrier. I love what I saw from DJ Moore last night. He made a bunch of crucial third down grabs. It was nice to see guys getting hit with the ball in front of them and in accurate positions. Tons of throws to the sideline, which is something we haven't seen in a while. Accurate throws to the sideline. They didn't go deep too many times. I get they're being vanilla. But, this brings up a good point here. Granted, I know the Panthers did score 34 points last night. How much of our red zone struggles would you say is, hey, it's just the preseason versus, hey, we actually have a problem when it comes to being in the red zone?
That's interesting because there's a lot of different factors in it. I think first of all, yes, I think the preseason has at least something to do with it, but it is undeniable that last year we were not good in the red zone. You can point to the play calling. Hasn't always been great in the red zone and short yardage situations in general. And I'm not sure if it's the play calling that's so bad or just because our offense isn't really built for those situations. We spend so much time spreading it out, spreading the love around, throwing the ball. And then it's like all of a sudden we want to, when we get in fourth and one and, third and goal, we want to play some smash mouth football that we haven't. Steve Smith said it last night on the broadcast. We haven't been balanced. We haven't been running the ball to throw the ball. We haven't been setting the groundwork for a team that can run the ball down your throat on 3rd and 1. And that's kind of the trade-off. Do you want a team that can move the ball up and down the field? Or do you want to go back to the John Fox days where we run the ball 80% of the time, but when we get in 3rd and short, we have a much better chance of making it? We don't have the cheat code that we used to have on 3rd and inches and 4th and inches with Cam Newton where he could just sneak it and get it. And it just wasn't fair for the other team. We don't have that anymore. And we really, to be honest, don't have a real fullback anymore either. We let Alex Armagh go. I honestly don't understand why. He signed with the Saints for, I think, a 1-year, $1 million contract or something. So, basically nothing. And it was like he was our real only true blocking fullback. So I would think they would use Tommy Trimble in that role, being that he was such a good blocker in college. But so far, or in these three preseason games, we haven't seen that. It hasn't been him back there. It's been Richie and what's his name? I think Stevenson, 86. Mm-hmm. So, I would think moving forward that might be his role, but we haven't seen it so far. So, I don't know.
You bring up a great point about Trimble. First off, he looked great again last night. I hate to say it, Ian Thomas, goodbye. I'm very sorry. I had high expectations for you, but I don't know, man. I think it's going to be Arnold and Trimble. I could be wrong, but I'm sure they'll keep more than 2 tight ends, but still. It is concerning to me. And it's frustrating because, I get that we're in the preseason, a lot of vanilla play calling, fine. But I want to tell you this. If I see one more fullback dive on 4th and 1, I might shoot my TV. Okay, this is not 1980 where you're just running your 3rd string tight end in the back because that's just way too predictable, man. Way too predictable. And we don't have the pedigree yet of being a team that can just run in there on 4th and 1 and do it. Granted, we'll have McCaffrey hopefully all season long. But, yeah, they need to – we've got guys that can do multiple things. I mean, you talk about Trimble. Guy was known for his blocking. His pass catching has been amazing so far this preseason, which is great for his development. But let's also put him in there and do what he does best. Put the guy back there at fullback and then put McCaffrey in the backfield. Let's see what happens. Maybe give him a fullback shot or just let him block. There's multiple things you can do. We've got Terrace Marshall, a guy that can be good in the red zone. You can put Trimble at tight end. You can put Dan Arnold at tight end. And then, I'm not – obviously, Sam Darnold isn't Sam Darnold's not Cam Newton, but the guy's not slow. I mean, he can run. He showed it a little bit yesterday, so you can definitely maybe use him in short yardage situations for like a QB sneak. But, the play calling, you can't get too gimmicky in the red zone. You got to find that nice balance between being aggressive but also just getting the ball moving forward and running the ball. So, I think they've got guys. I think they've got the talent to figure it out. It's the one thing about Joe Brady that just kind of angers me a bit. No team's perfect, but I think over time they've got guys. They should be able to punch it in the red zone. And that's where you miss a guy like a Cam Newton or Greg Olsen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing is, like you said, we haven't seen Christian McCaffrey basically all last year and all this preseason. So, and he is, contrary to what a lot of people think, he is a good red zone running back. You give him the ball inside the 5 and 10 yard line, a lot of times he scores. You don't score 20 touchdowns in the NFL without being good in the red zone. So,
right,
he is a good running back down there. So, maybe when we get him back this year, it'll be different. plus, all the different variations you can do with the play action and the options and everything with him down there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be, I think, a make or break type season for Joe Brady in that area, because I think right now, as good as he's been at moving the ball between the 20s, you have to score points, especially when you have kickers who can't make kicks, which has been a bit of a curse for us. So, I expect it to get better. I'm hoping it'll get better, but anyone who has complaints about it, I totally get it.
I also want to bring up the point. I would like to see, Chuba Hubbard had a pretty solid showing last night. He did drop a pretty wide open pass.
Yeah,
that happens sometimes.
On that one.
Yeah, it's weird because he kind of jumped like mid-air, and I think the way like his body was positioned kind of didn't help him at all when he tried to catch it.
It was just an awkward situation where the ball just happened to land in the trajectory and everything. It was just weird, but at the same time, you got to catch that.
I would say inside the 20-yard line, you talk about spreading it out. We can go 3 receivers, and then let's put McCaffrey and Hubbard in the backfield. You got 2 guys that can catch the ball and are fast. That's going to free somebody open. So, I mean, they've got guys. We've got the playmakers. We just have to be able to convert. And I think it's something they can figure out. But, they've got guys. And I want to see more of Trimble in the red zone. I think he's going to be a red zone threat. And, they did a lot of quick, wide receiver screens yesterday to Moore a couple times. He's a little bit on the slower side, so it didn't really work. It worked with Terrace Marshall, but, you got to be careful with stuff like that in the red zone. But I think it's something that will get better.
Yeah, and Terrace Marshall's a good point. He's so athletic. When we saw it yesterday with that screen in the red zone, what he can do with it if he gets, a couple of blocks. But he's also a guy that if you play up on him and try to press him, he's going to beat you on that fade route.
Yeah.
So he's going to unlock some different things. DJ Moore, has that ability too, but I think Terrace Marshall's just built for it a little better.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Going on to the next point, we've got the greatest question of all time. Who is going to be the Panthers kicker this season? Well, midweek, we did trade one of our picks that we got in the Greg Little trade to the Giants for Ryan Santoso. And yesterday, I think we know who our kicker is going to be. Now, I'm not saying I'm super confident in it because it's only been one game, but, sometimes you got to make quick decisions. Santoso made a couple field goals yesterday. Sly, unfortunately, missed another one. He made a couple PATs, but I think the writing is on the wall for him.
Yeah, 100%. He's gone. The pick was conditional only if Santoso plays 2 games for us this year, is what I read. Okay. So in the event that another kicker becomes available, they might cut both of them and bring in somebody else. But I just don't think there's any way Sly sticks around. At this point, his track record has not been good over the last couple of years. And then this preseason just sealed it because he's been awful. I mean, he might be under 50% this preseason. And I don't think Santoso's missed at all this preseason. So right now you got to go with the hot foot.
I agree. Granted, Santoso's kick did bounce off the side of the post and go in, but it does count.
Still counts.
And he's a big guy, man. We could use him in the red zone, maybe a little QB sneak action or something. But I feel bad for Sly because I watched the game yesterday, and God, I love Steve Smith on commentary. He's so brutally honest and entertaining. But he was really giving Joey Sly the business last night.
Just brutal, man. Jesus, dude.
He was letting everybody know that he was going to be packing his bags and leaving. So, I feel bad for the guy personally because, it sucks to, lose your job. And then you saw on the sideline, J.J. Jansen was talking to him like, hey, man, I'm sure he'll get another opportunity somewhere. A kicker will get hurt. Something will happen. They'll have to bring somebody in. But best of luck to him. But yeah, I think Santoso isn't a guaranteed spot. He could make it for a couple games, and if somebody else becomes available, they could sign someone else. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
The interesting thing about that shot that you're talking about, it looked like they were saying a little prayer together, Jansen and Sly, and everyone looked at that and said, Sly's been horrible. This is so hard to watch because he's losing his job and he knows it. But Jansen's praying for his job too. The Panthers just drafted a long snapper who has not done anything wrong so far. And, we've seen it on special teams. He can get down there and mix it up with, making tackles. I'm not, I think Jansen will get cut too.
Yeah, you're right. That kind of slipped my mind. I've thought about it a little bit, but I don't really know how they determine who's the best long snapper to keep. I don't know.
The way I look at it is if you have two guys that are both doing just fine, and one of them is, 35 and the other one is 22, and you're a young team building something for the future, I don't see why you keep the young guy. I mean, the old guy, especially after you just drafted the other guy.
That's true. So yeah, well, I guess we'll see in the coming days how the cuts look and what happens. And speaking of, people being cut, things like that, we missed last week because I had to have surgery, but the week before we were talking about the PJ Walker, Will Grier thing. Mm-hmm. And yesterday was actually the complete opposite. Looks like Will Grier looked a little bit better than PJ Walker. Granted, a lot of times Walker did put some throws on the money that people dropped. I did see people saying that he threw the ball a little bit too hard, but I don't know about that. The guys that did just drop the pass. I don't see us keeping three quarterbacks. Who do you think they're going to roll with at the end of the day?
To be honest with you, I don't – in my opinion, I'm not sure we should keep either one of them. I think Will Grier's had a good enough preseason that we might be able to flip him for a draft pick. But, as much as I love PJ Walker, I really do, not that confident with him back there, He showed he can win, but, depending on who becomes available after this preseason, I wouldn't be against the Panthers, shopping either one of them and trying to bring someone else in, especially if you could, trade a late draft pick for a guy like Gardner Minshew, who showed he can win. Come in and let him be your backup. That way, if anything happens to Sam Darnold, we've talked about how bad that offensive line is. If anything happens to Sam Darnold, you have a guy you can feel more confident about coming in. But to answer your question, if I had to pick one, I'd probably stick with PJ. But in my opinion, I'm not against them going out and looking for someone else.
I don't think that's a bad thing to do. It depends on who becomes available and seeing what kind of options they have. I think you always should be looking to get better. Excuse me. I would probably stick with PJ too. I did like what Will Grier did last night. I think in a situation, though, if you have the starters on the field, you've got between Will Grier and PJ Walker, I'm going to go with Walker a little bit more. He's a little bit more – well, obviously he's more athletic, even though Will Grier did look like Cam Newton last night running for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. He seems to take a little bit more chances down the field. I think you can get better at the backup spot, but at the end of the day, if I had to pick someone, there's no one else available, I'd probably pick PJ Walker. But you never know. Since they're not super confident in either one, they might roll with three quarterbacks. Who knows?
Yeah, I would we probably have to get into it a little bit more, breaking down the positions, see how many roster spots there are. I would probably guess they'll keep both of them, but, who knows?
So I see you've got the roster pulled up here. Looking at some people that could potentially be cut, people that might make the team. This is a pretty interesting preseason here in terms of, guys that I was actually interested in making the team. Real quick, we'll talk about Shai Smith. I don't know if you've heard any updates yet or anything. I know he got hurt last night. Looks like it was a shoulder/collarbone type injury. Thankfully we made it out of the preseason without anything major. But I do hate to see him hurt because I like him as a player, and I think he could be very valuable on our team as a punt returner, like a nice receiver on third down, a fifth or sixth wide receiver, a guy that, he can make some plays. I don't think it's going to be dire that we don't have him for however long he's out. We've got wide receivers, but, it does suck because I think he could be a pretty good player for us.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Shai Smith moving forward. I think he's a great player, or he has the potential to be a great player. I think right now he's a very good player. You can put him in. We've seen it in the preseason. He can make plays. He's made some outstanding catches through training camp in the preseason. Very underrated player. How a guy like that drops all the way to 6th round, I have no idea. I mean, I think he's a baller. I love the kid, but at the same time, the only thing I've seen on his injury, I think Matt Rule described it as serious. So it's not a good sign. But like you said, fortunately, receiver is a position where it's probably our deepest position right now. So, we have guys. He probably wasn't going to see the field all that much anyway, especially, here to start the season. So, thoughts and prayers for sure. Hopefully he can get better and get back on the field because I think he has a ton of potential to be, like you said, a great, third down receiver, slot type of receiver. Just a fire plug kind of a player you can put in there every once in a while who'll make a big play for you.
I think if he was on any other team that didn't have a abundance of good wide receivers, he could probably be like your number 3 or number 4. I think he would be like a 400, 500-yard receiver this year because I think he's that good. He's shown that he's got that ability. So hopefully he gets healthy and we can, bring him back when we're making our deep playoff run this year.
That's right. We'll see him at Super Bowl 50. What are we on now, 55?
50-something, I don't know. After 50, I quit watching.
After about 38, I quit paying attention.
So taking a look at the roster here, I want to touch base on a couple people that have really piqued my interest. First off, last name what's the first name? Tommy Luvu? What is it?
Frankie
Luvu. Sorry. Luvu, I love this guy. He has been an absolute beast in the preseason. He's just everywhere making all kinds of tackles. I think he played for the Jets past year.
Yes, sir.
I like his hair, first off, and then second off, he's just a beast, man. He's all in on special teams. He's always in there just making tackles. I like this guy as one of our backup linebackers. I know linebacker's kind of a tough spot. We also traded Denzel Perryman to the Raiders. He only practiced maybe once or twice, so they get rid of him. Jermaine Carter's going to be the middle linebacker, which I think is fine. I like Jermaine Carter. He's a good player. Shaq is Shaq. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's eh. And then we've got Hassan Riddick, which I think he'll be a beast this year. And, I think we're going to see Luvu play a little bit as well.
Yeah, I like Luvu. I mean, you look at this, 24 years old. I think he had a couple of sacks last year with the Jets. So, he's been in games and made plays. But, just the energy he brings when he's on the field, I mean, he's exactly what you want, especially in a defense like ours that's real fast, guys flying around, doing all kinds of different stuff. I think he has a chance, to be a playmaker on this defense. We talk about all the time chess pieces, guys you can do different things with, come in. They may not be the best, starting linebackers in the NFL, but he's the kind of guy you want who you put him in the right positions and he's going to do some good things for you. And, I mean, he's shown it in the preseason. I think, when we brought him in from the Jets, he was kind of seen as this guy who could come in and give us some extra pass rush on, in different situations. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. And I'm excited. I'm excited for him this year. I think he's going to take a lot of people by surprise.
The number one thing I love about this new coaching staff and the people we have is that these guys are all about roster building. Now, in the past, under the Rivera-led teams, the Fox-led teams, we've had our stars. There's no doubt about that. We've had plenty of stars, plenty of all-pro caliber type players. Past that, there hasn't been a whole lot. And we know injuries happen, next man up. There's no excuse. I've enjoyed this preseason because I like the guys that we have that are second, third, fourth tier that can come in and they look like, they're decent players that can come in and play. I'm not saying they should be starting, but it's not always – if you can make the small positions like that right, I mean, these guys are going to be playing special teams. That's important. These guys are going to be subbing in, making some plays here and there. Some guys could go down. I like the fact that we're trying to build our roster young, and we're doing it with guys that even though they might not be starting, they're still pretty damn good players, and they could come in and play if they need to. In the past, if someone went down, man, we were toast. Now, it's better than normal, and the guys are young. They're learning. They have a coach that they want to play for, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, they're just so quick with the roster turnover, Fitterer and Rule. They bring guys in all the time, and if they say, all right, this guy can help us, they find a way that guy can, help the team. They find a role for him. And if it's, they bring guy in, they decide, all right, this guy can't do anything for us. He's out. They bring someone else in. And it's just a never-ending flow of players coming through the building. And I think, that's something successful teams do.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say it so much, but it's so true. Chess, not checkers. It seemed like Rivera would always, he had his base defense. He had his base offense. He knew what he wanted to do. The players who came in the building, their roles were not fit for their talents. Their roles were fit for his offense. So they'd plug them in a spot where, they may or may not be able to get the job done. And we just had to live with it.
Yep.
This coaching staff, they bring people in, they find a way that they can use them, and they let players do what they do best. They don't expect them to fit into a spot that they don't necessarily fit into. And I think you see it game in and game out when you see players who were undrafted free agents coming in and making plays.
I agree 100%. I mean, you got guys all over the field doing stuff, How many times over the years have we seen the Patriots have these no-name random guys come up and make crucial plays? Not saying that's going to happen for us, but it's
the
possible.
Exact same concept, yeah.
Exactly. Touching on a couple other guys, it was, I think, I'm sorry if I get some of the names of some of these guys wrong because I'm big fans. I think number 34, Sean Chandler, safety, I believe, or corner. I liked him a lot. He's come in and made a lot of plays on defense. This is probably the most hype I've been about a secondary in quite a while. Look, obviously he played for Temple, so he knows what's going on. Yeah, I like him a lot. He's come in and made a lot of tackles. He had a pretty good game against the Colts. I like this guy. And then I think number 38 as well. He's another safety. He was playing some slot corner last night. I can't remember the name. I'm sorry.
Hartsfield from
Hartsfield.
from Ole Miss, I believe. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was the guy we signed as an undrafted free agent last year, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But he was a guy I was excited about because in college, he was one of those chess pieces. They used him all over the field. He made plays, and he's done that here in the pros. And I think, him and, like you said, Chandler, these are guys who have shown that they're just playmakers. When they're on the field, they do good things, and that, credit to the coaching staff. They put them in positions where they can do big things, and, credit to them. They show that they can do those big things. On Chandler, it's interesting because I think they said there's like 10 ex-Rule college players on the roster, which is crazy. It's funny because every time we bring one in, I'm like, oh, here we go. He's just, playing favorites. But it's like these guys always come in and produce above my expectations. And it's wild how effective these players are that he's been coaching for, years and years.
It's true. It's true. I'm glad you bring that up because a lot of times you see a guy that comes in, oh, well, this is his boy, so he brings him in, so he's going to play. We've seen that a lot with the Hornets, with Michael Jordan bringing in his own guys. A lot of times it doesn't work that way, but Rule has brought these people in, and they have done what they're supposed to do, and they fit into the positions. That there hasn't been a single guy from Temple he's brought in. I'm like, oh, this guy, he's just because he knows Matt Rule. No, it's not like the Tim Tebow thing in Jacksonville at all. This guy, they're coming in, they're young, they're producing. If they don't work, worse, they get cut. Not a big deal. But yeah, I like a lot of these guys a lot. I'm very excited about the defense last night. Granted, we did play a lot of second stringers. And I just want to say this, man. I feel bad for Dwayne Haskins. I really thought he would, be better. I was hoping for him. Granted, it's just the preseason, but he didn't look super great last night. Panthers defense looked awesome. Brian Burns, it's going to be a beast. I'm getting his jersey this year. I like Morgan Fox. Gross Matos, he's going to be coming in a little bit. He's still young, learning. I like him. You got Marquise Haynes, kind of your third down specialist. And then we've got Daquan Jones, and then you've got Hassan Reddick. So I love it. Defense is going to be absolute. And Derek Brown. How could I forget? He made a couple of good tackles last night. Big run stuff. I love it, man. I love a good defensive line. So I'm fired up.
Now, to me, these guys are like reincarnations, man. It's crazy. I see Derek Brown as the next Chris Jenkins. I see Brian Burns as the next Julius Peppers. I see Jeremy Chin as the next Mike Minter. What's his name? Horn and Gamble, same thing. But it's like a lot of them, it's like they're the better version, Maybe not Julius Peppers, but the secondary guys especially have a chance to be better versions of those players. So it's pretty wild. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I agree with you 100%. I know the little bit that J.C. Horn was in last night. He made a couple pass breakups. Dante Jackson was making some tackles. We still haven't seen A.J. Boye yet.
I was going to say, the same thing. We haven't seen him all preseason, so.
I know he's been hurt, so in hindsight, this makes the J.C. Horn pick look better because if we're going in right now with just Dante Jackson and Stanley Thomas Oliver, which I think he's a nice player, but, starter, it's tough.
Yeah. Stanley Thomas Oliver is a guy who, when we drafted him, I just did not see it. He was a 6 or 7 round pick. I don't remember, but I just remember looking at his, some of his college tape and it was like, man, I don't see it. This guy does not look like an NFL corner. And, credit to the coaching staff. He is turning into a nice backup player, and it's so cool to see. I mean, he's a good player. Keith Taylor, I'm real excited about. Out of these guys, before I ask you this question, did you notice how much they were hyping up Dante Jackson last night with the commentary?
They were, yeah.
Like, dude, just because he's not missing tackles doesn't mean you need to hype him up that much. I mean, that's a bad sign. And
there was one of those where like the guy was like kind of running like out of bounds and he kind of tackled him at the last second on the sideline. And they were like, Dante Jackson with a tackle. I was like,
yeah, that's a bad sign when they're hyping up a tackle on a 12-yard completion. But, credit to Dante Jackson, he's an exciting player, but he's just not a very consistent player.
Hopefully this year he brings the consistency because he's coming up for a contract extension if he wants one. So, I mean, I like him as a ball hawk. He's very good. He does miss some tackles here and there. So if he can clean things up, I like the guy. I hope he can just get a little bit more consistent and then we can, all
the potential in the world, but the inconsistency is what drives me crazy with him. And
I know.
First – half of his first rookie season, I thought, dude, this guy's going to be one of the best corners in the league, but the consistency hasn't been there. Do you want to go through right here and try to pick out which guys we think might make that final 53?
Sure. I can probably get them all wrong, but I'll try.
Yeah, so I'm looking at these corners. So it looks like there's we'll count Hartsfield as a corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 now. You'd imagine they'd keep – is 5 fair?
5 or 6. It kind of – I'm assuming probably like 5 to 6 on corners. I think for me personally, if I was a staff, I would – I don't know how they want to do the roster, but I would like to go deep with secondary guys because it's just a position where guys get hurt sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah. And I like some of these guys a lot. I'd hate to see – I hate to see him go because they've all been pretty productive. And then we had Troy Pride, who got hurt too. He's out for the year, unfortunately, so he would be in the mix as well. I don't know, man. I haven't heard much about AJ Boye. You think he could be a surprise cut, or you think they're just going to stick with him?
I don't see them cutting him, but what do I know? I would imagine he stays on the team. It's almost like I almost have this theory that Rule in the coaching staff are like aware how like talented their team is, and that's like one of them, along with staying healthy, is one of the main reasons they didn't play starters so much in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think they don't want the league to know like how dangerous they can be, because I mean, every position, I mean, they are just a good football team other than offensive line. They are a good football team. So I mean, I think Boye's fine. Even Julius and Melvin, those are guys that I thought would probably make the roster, but now that I'm looking at it, those are probably the two guys that you cut out of this group and keep the rest of them. Troy Pride probably wouldn't have made the team, so maybe it wasn't his best interest that he got hurt.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there on your two picks, probably Julius and Melvin. Keith Taylor's been solid. Stanley Thomas Oliver's been solid. We already talked about Hartsfield. He's been good. So, hey, if we can go in with a couple of good corners, some guys that can play a little bit of safety too, I'm all for it. I mean, we'll see who they end up keeping, but I think those guys should be safe bets.
And I think those two guys will definitely, at least Julius, Melvin maybe not because he's a little older, but I think those guys – have a very good shot at finding jobs if they get cut. Because I think they've been fine players. It's just you look at that group, it's hard to find anyone else you would cut other than them.
Exactly. The only thing that's holding Melvin back is that he's older. If you're going to keep someone, you're probably going to keep the younger guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Julius has had a good preseason, good training camp. So, if I had to pick a guy, it'd be him. I would like to keep him. I thought he's been a good player.
Yeah. Taking a look at the defense here, Brian Burns, he's been on the fringe, man. I'm not quite sure if he's going to make it.
Honestly, I'm surprised he made it this far without getting cut.
Seriously, especially wearing number 53 on the defensive line.
I'm glad he didn't make that switch to 9.
He's a monster. I love him. We haven't seen a ton of Morgan Fox, but I think that's okay. I think he's going to be a pretty solid player.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
Gross Matos, I was really hoping – I'm not going to say I was disappointed in him because I thought he had a solid preseason.
Yeah.
I thought he might make that jump to being a starter, but I don't think he's going to start over Fox. But as long as he can rotate in and just play some, be a good run stopper and, add some pressure, I'm totally fine with that. Marquise Haynes, I like him a lot. He's been on the team for a couple years now. Good rotational guy, can go in there and get some sacks. Frank Heron, I honestly haven't seen a ton from him. I could be wrong. I could see him probably getting cut. Christian Miller was someone I was super high on when he got drafted. He sat out last year. I think he'll probably make the team. He showed out a little bit in preseason. Derek Brown, obviously a beast. And I didn't see a ton from Hoskins this preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. But what are your thoughts on those guys?
So out of this group, I would agree with you. Heron's the only one that really jumps out as like definitely going to get cut. I think Hoskins, I noticed he was getting double teams, which is what you want from your defensive tackles. I don't think has made a lot of flashy plays this preseason, but I think he's done what they want him to do, and that's get a consistent push in the middle. So he's a late round pick. Him getting cut is possible. We'll see. But I expect him to make the team. And like you said, Haynes, I like. Gross Matos, like you said, he didn't make that jump to being a starter, but good player. Fox is going to do, he's going to be the starter. Expect good things from him. Miller, like Miller. Derek Brown, obviously. Daquan Jones, Davion Nixon, Brandon. Man, that defensive line is deep. Yeah, I mean, Hoskins might be the one that gets cut.
Well, how many people do you think they plan to carry on the line?
I don't know. I mean, there's going to be probably at least one or two tough cuts here. Let's see. How many DNs you got? 6 and then 5. So they got 11 guys now. You'd imagine they'd probably cut it to eight or 9 probably.
We also have to take in consideration that there's going to be practice squad spots.
True.
I believe that's 10 spots, I believe.
Yeah, they upped it. I don't remember the exact number, but, at the same time, being on the practice squad doesn't necessarily mean anything because it's, you're basically a free agent. You can still get plucked up at any time. So,
correct. I think Daquan Jones, obviously, he's going to make it. We sign him as a vet. And then I think scroll down a little bit. Davion Nixon. I had a lot of expectations for him. I think he was a later round pick. I think it was like 5th or 6th round. But he was very, very productive in college. I saw he made a couple plays here and there in the preseason. I didn't see like a ton, but granted, that's probably just my own fault. I could see him as a guy that could. I think they want to keep him. He could end up getting cut or could move to the practice squad. I like Bravion Roy. I think he's also a good player. Played for Baylor, obviously. So that's tough, man. I don't know. I don't know how many guys are going to plan on keeping.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. What did we just say? 11. So I would guess Heron gets cut, and I mean that's really the only one that just jumps off the screen.
Yeah, I think between that you'd be looking at probably Hoskins, Nixon, and Roy as other guys that you have to decide between them to cut.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who you cut. I mean, honestly, next guy up might be Christian Miller, but then you're cutting 2 defensive ends, and so I mean, they need those pass rushers. Of course, they still have guys like Hassan Reddick. I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to it.
Hopes for Christian Miller as like a good rotational piece. I like him. I think
I do too.
Hopefully they keep him around. I think he could be someone that could be, like a Marquise Haynes type player.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that when he comes in every once in a while he'll make a play. So, in limited reps too. So, all right. Well, let's look at offensive line, or I guess we're at guards. I'm just going down.
Man, what a stellar group!
Yeah. I mean, I guess they keep the top 3 guys.
Let me ask you a question. A couple years ago, it's funny because we said that we were going to keep our episodes short, but we missed last week, so we're going all out. I don't care.
Yeah, this is going to have to be the preseason wrap-up, so, we got to go all out here.
It's weird because, I'm not sure how confident or how much you look at, like, Pro Football Focus, like, scores and things like that or whatever. But Dennis Daly, when he first came out, they were – his scores were amazing and he was being hyped up a lot. I remember he played a lot and people were like, this guy's really good. And then I guess I'm assuming he had some injury history. I thought he was a pretty good player, but he's not really starting. I don't know if you know anything further on that. Was it maybe just they overhyped him a bit? Because I remember when he first came out like a year or two ago, he was a pretty solid lineman.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Tanner. I, saw him as a guy who could, be a fringe starter for the, next 8 or 10 years. At least a good backup. But it seems like, I don't know if it's just this, new coaching staff or something, but he just really hasn't, been a guy that they go to. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something to keep an eye on. I think they definitely should keep him. He's at least a good backup, but I thought he'd be in the starting role, but we'll see. Looking at this roster here, the guards, I think they're probably going to keep. I don't know how they determine how many guards to keep. I think John Miller's a given. I think Deontay Brown's a given, and I think Dennis Daly's a given.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think Elfing's a given too.
Yeah, so that's probably going to leave
4 guards.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, 1 to start and 1 for each backup. So probably going to be Mr. Mike Horton there that gets the cut, unfortunately. Yeah. We've talked about the kicking situation. Joey Slye is gone. Looking at linebackers, this is another good group. I really like what I saw from Louisville. We've already discussed that.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I saw from Clay Johnston as well. He, made a couple stops here and there. Obviously,
I agree.
he went to Baylor, so not surprised. I like him. I saw a little bit from Stanford. I don't know how many linebackers are going to keep, but Jermaine Carter is going to stay. Lou's going to stay. Shaq's going to stay. And Hassan Reddick's going to stay. I don't know if you consider him a linebacker or at the end or.
Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, he's down there. He's listed at outside linebacker.
Okay.
But he's the only one listed at outside linebacker. Yeah. So the thing that jumps out from this list to me is Patty Fisher. I mean, when we signed him, he's a guy I thought I would, at least see his name more in the preseason. I feel like I barely even saw him on the field at all. So, obviously I think he gets cut. Celestin probably gets cut. Out of this group, I would say Bynes, Carter, Luvu, Stanford, and Shaq stay, and then Reddick stays. So that would give you 6 linebackers.
I can roll with that. I was a huge fan of Jermaine Carter when he last year. I know he's been on the team for a couple of years now. I think last year he was a really, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's nothing against him at all because I think he's a very good player, but they keep hyping him up as he's Luke Kuechly's replacement. I'm like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah,
I get he's playing middle linebacker, but
I think we're in this dangerous area with Jermaine Carter where it was like for a couple of years he's shown he could probably be like a starting quality player, and now it feels like we're forcing him into this like captain role that he might not be ready for.
I agree. I agree 100%.
And I feel like we had another player we did that with a few years back, and it ended up just not working out. And I can't remember who I'm thinking of. I think it was I wish I could think because it just feels so familiar, this situation.
Yeah.
I think Shaq's a guy that, that's kind of almost what happened too, but that's not who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's tough. I think he's a very good player, but I think people need to limit their expectations. I thought linebacker we needed help all over the roster this draft, and we got talent. Don't get me wrong. I thought linebacker might have been a spot where I feel like today's NFL, you can find some damn good linebackers in like the 3rd and 4th round. I was quite surprised they didn't go that route. But
well, you look at Carter; he was a 6th round pick, I think.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's probably something they'll address in next offseason and, see what happens from free agency. Looking at the long snapper, J.J. Jansen probably getting the boot. We'll see.
I think so. I mean, you look at that 14-year veteran versus a rookie, same build. He's been consistent. I mean, if you spend a draft pick on a long snapper, you can't cut that guy. He's got to make your roster. So I'm thinking
that's almost a waste of a pick if you don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That could have been a whole nother a linebacker or a lineman.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you're going to spend a pick on a long snapper, I have a hard time believing he's not making your team.
Let's give some love to Joseph Carlton, the punter. Yeah. This guy put on a show this preseason. He had some damn good punts yesterday. Someone that doesn't really get talked about.
He's a good punter, man. He is. He from South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
He's a good punter, man. He's been not always the most consistent, but I think, he's still young too. What's he in his 3rd year, 2nd year?
2nd year, yeah.
Yeah. So he's a good player. I think, we're pretty set at that position for the foreseeable future. All right. So quarterbacks we kind of talked about. For me, I'm keeping track of how many players we're keeping. So I'll count them at the end and let you know if I think we'll keep 3 quarterbacks.
Good, because they would have be like, all right, go ahead and cut your roster down, and I do it like, hey, you need to make like 10 more cuts. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what.
Every time in Madden.
Every time. I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
Running back is an interesting position.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, McCaffrey is a given.
Right.
He is going to be followed by Chuba Hubbard. I think had a really, really nice preseason. He missed a couple passes here and there, a drop, but I think that's okay. I think he's someone that's going to come in and get a couple carries a game. And then I got to be honest with you, man. I was I know you're not a huge Reggie Bonifant fan. I liked him a lot in the previous seasons from what I've seen, but he just has had a trouble staying healthy. I think he's probably going to get cut because I really like what I saw from Spencer Brown last night and for most of the preseason.
Yeah, I think Bonifant is done. I think out of this group, you're looking at Brown, Hubbard, and McCaffrey for sure. And then I think Trenton Cannon is a sneaky possibility because he's very versatile. You can put him in the backfield. He's played a lot at receiver here in training camp. And then last year he had a kickoff return for a touchdown. So I think there's a good chance he makes the team as a special teamer and as like a flex guy.
He could, yeah, very well. So that's and I'm not convinced that we have our punt return, kick return guy down pat yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that you could possibly keep one of those guys. Looking at safety here, this is another group where I like what I see. Justin Burris, he was a starter last year. I would imagine he'll be back. Sean Chandler, I love what I saw from him this preseason. I think he's going to be in the mix. Definitely keep him. Jeremy Chin should have been Defensive Player of the Year last year, rookie Defensive Player of the Year. Sam Franklin, another Temple guy. He's a solid guy. He played a lot last year. So Doug Middleton, I don't know a ton about him. Unfortunately, he'll probably get cut. And then Kenny Robinson, I know we drafted him last year. I haven't followed up with him a ton this preseason. I don't know if you've seen anything. I'm not sure.
Well, he had that interception in the first preseason game.
Okay.
But I think he got hurt. I think that's why we didn't see him last night. Yeah, I mean, I think that last spot's definitely going to come down to Chandler and Robinson. I like Kenny Robinson. I like to see him make the team, but it's hard to argue with what Chandler's done in this preseason. So, I imagine it'll come back down to one of those two guys.
I think so too. Well, they probably keep 4 safeties, I guess.
I would think so. I mean, 5 is possible, but 4 is, again, I guess it'll just come down to how many guys we have making the roster or at what positions.
Yeah. Now this is a tough group here. Christensen, he should be starting. You take a guy in the 3rd round that's a starter. We needed to get at least 3 starters out of this draft. He was a 3rd round or a 2nd round pick or 3rd round. I can't remember. Just let's start this guy and quit playing around. Cam Irving, he'll make the team, but he's not a starter. I don't know anything about Ivy. I don't know anything about Monterio. Moton's obviously our best offensive lineman. Trent Scott, I know a little bit about him. He'll probably make the team. I'm assuming you're probably going to keep 3 tackles, a starter. Obviously,
I would guess out of this group, you keep Christensen, Irving, Moton, and Trent Scott.
Yeah.
And then that would give you 4 guards, 4 tackles.
Yeah, I agree. Going down to the tight end spot, Dan Arnold, he's going to be a starter this year. Had a couple grabs last night. Richie, he'll make the team. I usually roll with 3 or 4 tight ends, or usually about 3, I think. And then you've got –
sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I'll say I would normally probably roll with 3 tight ends, but with this group, especially being the flexibility that Richie and Trimble have at fullback, you probably keep 4: Richie, Arnold, Thomas, and Trimble. But I think I honestly think there's a possibility Thomas could get the boot. But
I think I saw online yesterday if they cut Ian Thomas, they saved $2 million, which isn't a huge sum of money, but for him, listen, there's no bigger fan of Ian Thomas than me. I loved the guy when he came in. I thought he was going to be a beast. He played a lot his rookie season at the end of the year and showed a lot of potential. He just, for some reason, hasn't really gotten the opportunities. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, I want him on the roster. We'll see what happens. But I think, if you keep 3, he might be the one. He might be the one you cut.
In that, and I think Tommy Trimble is obviously he's younger. He's got more potential. That he should be the number 2 tight end at least. I want to see that guy play. I think he's ready now. Just put him out there and play, and he'll develop very quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to argue to keep him off the field. Let's look at the deepest position, wide receiver.
Nice.
So 1, Anderson. 2, 3, 4. We'll call Shai Smith 5. Shai Smith, I mean, he makes the roster, but because of his injury and, the severity of it, he might get put on IR.
Correct.
But I'd say out of this group, you probably keep probably 6.
I think, yeah. Keith Kirkwood, he played pretty decent last night, but I think, unfortunately, he's going to get the boot. Also, Hyman, I didn't see a ton from him, unfortunately. And then you've got C.J. Saunders, who's been returning punts. I mean, he's okay. And then Brandon Zalstra, I think he was on the team last year. He might be like the last receiver kept, possibly, but
I think they like him. If it was my call, I'd probably cut him, but I don't know. I think they like him. But
yeah,
according to my count, that puts us at like 56. So
okay, so we're close.
Yeah, it depends on, like running back, I said 3 to 4, safety, I said 4 to 5, tight end, I said 3 to 4. So that's 3 out of those battles. You could cut 3 right there and get yourself down to 53. So
yeah, and
you've got a general idea of what it'll look like.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything like shocking. You might see maybe one of the tight ends gets cut that you might not anticipate, or maybe one of the linemen. But I think for the most part, we know who's going to be on the team.
Yeah. And also, before we move on, I would say tackle is one position I would keep an eye on for players from outside the organization getting calls.
They should. They should always.
I think they'll keep 4, but I'm not sure that, those 4 guys are who they'll have on the roster come week 1.
I agree. So, yeah, that's our breakdown of the roster. Probably the most in-depth roster look I've ever done, because I like a lot of the guys that we have that are young. Usually I don't care, but I like these guys. I like them a lot, and I think they're going to be – a lot of them obviously are great players already. And then you look at the guys that are just going to fill in some spots here, but those guys are important. You can't have enough good football players. So I like our roster.
I do as well. Like you said, a lot of young guys. So that's one of the beautiful things about this new era of Panthers football is they bring in a lot of young guys that you like because they can make plays. It's not just a roster that's, your starters and then 3 guys behind them that don't really stand out to you. So
exactly, because those guys matter. I mean, you never know. So you can't just be starter heavy, not have anybody to back anybody up. So kind of winding things down here. It's been a little bit of a longer episode, but we've been super in depth about everything. I like the direction of the team. I like the way we're going. Excuse me. I think, a lot in the Rivera years, I would watch preseason and I would be like, oh, we still have like poor clock management, or we still have – there was just some sort of feeling like you knew the team was good, but you just knew they were poorly coached, and you just didn't see that energy from the team. You just felt like they were just there. This team, while they have their faults, they're a younger team. They're being coached properly. Yes, they make mistakes, but they've got guys that looks like they have bought in, and they all want to be there, and they have energy. They want to play. It just makes me feel more confident about the culture of the team, as opposed to, okay, let's just we have Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly. Let's just hope something happens. I like this dynamic that we have. Even though there's some things we need to work on, I'd rather be going this way than the direction that we were going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, they're doing a great job of building around their cornerstones, and they have so many just young players that are going to be those cornerstones for this team, for the next 10 years. It's really exciting to see. And, Mick Mixon was on the broadcast yesterday saying, he believes that this team under Matt Rule is going to win a Super Bowl at some point. And, you never want to get your hopes too high, but I mean, you can just feel it. You can see it that this team is just being built the right way, bringing in the right kind of guys. Everybody is just, set on their goal and playing for each other. They're playing fast. They're just a young, exciting team. That doesn't always translate into wins, but it should be an exciting year, if nothing else.
Exactly. And if we can just work on the things we need to work on, just keep developing, I like it. I like where we're going. One of the last topics I want to ask you about here is, so we had Steve Smith on commentary all preseason. Personally, I was a fan. I know some people really liked it. Some people didn't like it. Some people thought he was maybe a bit too harsh on people, but at the same time, that's Steve Smith. I like the little banter they had between him and Tepper, where what's his name? The other guy, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, was hyping up Steve Smith for the Hall of Fame. And then, Steve Smith was just being funny and was like, hey, well, if you put me in the Hall of Fame, you got to retire my number. And Tepper was just like, no.
I know.
He just did not give a shit. And
I thought that was like borderline cringeworthy.
I thought it was a little bit, but I thought it was also funny how you could tell Smitty was just, he was being serious, but he was also just kind of playing around.
No, it was funny, but it was at the same time, it was like, ooh, getting shot down pretty hard there on live TV.
Yeah. Tepper was just kind of like, no.
Yeah.
I think the line where he said, it was like, how many Steelers players we retired? How many jerseys?
Yeah.
He's like, how many? None.
Yeah. No, I like Steve Smith in the broadcast booth. Honestly, at first, I wasn't too crazy about it in that first game, but over the course of the preseason, it grew on me. And don't get me wrong, Steve Smith's right up there with my favorite players ever, but he was a little rough around the edges when it came to some of those guys. Joey Sly, man, I don't know what Joey Sly did to Steve Smith, but he could not stop talking negative things about Joey Sly.
He was he made up for it a little bit at the end. He was being a little bit nicer, but yeah, he definitely was going after him, letting him know. But that's Steve Smith for you. But I like what he did. I'm glad he's back with the team. So that's good. As far as retiring his number, I gotta say, I love that post. Steve Smith
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought it up because this is what I put on our Twitter account last night.
I love it. I love it.
And then the Panthers respond with a skull emoji saying that they're dead, laughing at how funny I am. And then I said, but follow back though, and then they didn't. So.
Eventually they will, because we'll be the best podcast that talks about them. So they'll have to.
Well, they already know. Shout out. But yeah, Steve Smith just took this job because he missed talking shit all game, and that's pretty much all he did.
Pretty much. I just envisioned him down there just roasting everybody. But hey, I mean, when you're arguably the best Panther of all time, you've got the right to do that. So
yeah. I mean, it was good to have him in there, listen to what he had to say and, listen to all his funny lines. But, I don't know. It was kind of hard because at times it felt like he was like all the people we're talking about who are just way too hard on the team. Like, Sam Darnold's first, 10 reps, as the Panthers quarterback. And it's like he had nothing positive to say. Sam was getting the ball, finding open receivers, real quick decisions. And then Steve Smith would just be like, well, he had another guy open on the other side of the field. And I was like, well,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think he found like a first down. He's like, Shai Smith was wide open. I was like, dude, like we just moved the ball first down.
But I think, as an ex-player who's, rekindled his relationship with the team, I think it just boils down to. He just really wants to see the team succeed. So he wants to see that franchise quarterback, step in and take his spot and take this team to where it needs to go. So I think that's what it stems from, although it was kind of, harsh, I guess, at times.
I agree, but at the same time, that's him being him, and I'm glad he's back. I don't know how much more he's going to be involved this season. I think it's just a preseason gig, but I'm sure he'll be around.
Oh man, the Jaguars just stole my Minshew idea. I mean, the Eagles just stole my Minshew idea.
Oh, they did?
Yep.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm seeing that right now. Well, yeah, I guess that's out the window.
Well,
anyways, but hey, we're a couple weeks away from the home opener, the season opener. Me and you will both be there.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts on the preseason, your thoughts on the direction of the team, and your thoughts going forward?
Man, I'm excited, Thought it was a pretty good I thought the team showed that they're young and talented and only, have room to grow from here. But I think, that growth is going to put them right there in playoff conversations if they, can go out there and get the job done. So
I like it. I like this team a lot. I haven't been this excited in quite a while for a Panthers football team. Last year was tough because I knew we were going to suck.
Yeah. Same.
But this year is a little bit different. I like the direction the team is going. I like a lot of the young guys that we have. I like the culture of the team. I like the coaches. It's just we're on the up and coming side of the NFL, and I think in general this is a 7-10 win team, and I think they're going to be vying for a wild card spot. At the end of the season, if we're going where we think we're going to go, we played the Bucs last 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah,
I think we can take one of those games. So it won't be long before we are at the top of the NFC South. It might not be this year. We're going to be competing, but I think next year will definitely be it. But my expectation for this season is if all things go well according to plan, which they never do, but if Sam Darnold stays healthy and plays decently, this should be a wild card team. The offensive weapons are too good. The defense is too good. We just need some consistent O-line play, and I think we're right in the thick of it as far as the wild card goes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking 9 to 11 wins this year is
Sure.
what I'm hoping for. So, yeah, man, it's been a good talk, been a good episode. I know it's been a little longer, so sorry to anybody who's sick of listening to us talk, but you could have turned it off by now. If you're still here, please hit that subscribe button. We're building this channel up. I think we're almost at 50 now, so that's something.
Hey, we're getting there. Thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. I'm very excited for the season to go on. Once the season starts, we're going to start getting the fans a little bit more involved, taking questions, taking phone calls. Whatever you guys want to do, we'll do it. But I'm very excited. I like the direction of the team. I like the direction we're going. And I'm still don't like the single jersey rule. Sorry, I don't.
You know what? Me either, Tanner. I thought it would grow on me by now, but it really hasn't. Although DJ Morris does look clean.
It does. I like his, but when I saw the Steelers last night, there was a corner that was number 17. I almost threw my head out the window. I was like, I don't like it.
Well, it's actually created a little bit of an issue for me watching some like these teams that I'm not as familiar with, especially with their depth. They're all huddled up, and I'm like, I don't know what position that guy is, or I don't know who he is or what position he's about to go line up as.
It's just weird, man. Like I like J.C. Horn a lot. I think he's going to be a great player, but then I see him out there with number 8. I'm just like,
yeah,
you have like 20.
It just looks wrong.
I don't know.
He does kind of pull it off, though. I'll give it to him. Like him and DJ Moore are like the only two that I feel like pull it off properly, but everybody else, man, I'm just not a fan.
I'm hoping in like 3 years they just go back on that rule.
Yeah,
personally.
I'm hoping so too.
We'll see. But other than that, man, great to talk. I think this is probably the best episode we've done. Super in depth. We had a lot to talk about, so I'm enjoying it, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And thanks for anybody who's tuned in. We'll catch you next time, I guess.
Cool. We're signing out. We will see you guys next week. We'll do a give our thoughts before the game going into the regular season. We'll talk a little bit about maybe a little bit more regular NFL stuff. We're going to touch on the Panthers. We'll talk about who gets cut, all this good stuff, and then look around the league, maybe some surprise cuts, our thoughts on what's going on. So until then, we will see you guys next time.
All right. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.